Hi, I'm Matt Rorty. I'm one of the co-founders of Carrier Forge. I've helped hundreds of people launch their trucking companies, and I wanted to put a video out about how to apply for your DOT and MC number. I am going to be doing some screen sharing. I'm going to show you where to go to file it yourself, and I want to help you avoid some of the common mistakes I see clients make when they file their own DOT number. This is a service we offer. It's something that you don't have to file repeatedly. So if you just want it done right and kind of avoid delays and issues, come on over to carrierforge.com and we can take care of it for you. Otherwise, making sure that you're in the right place. This is going to be for property authorities. This is your typical trucking company working on load boards, working with brokers. If you're needing a DOT or MC number for another reason, like you're starting a brokerage or a freight forwarder, you want to get into passenger hauling, this isn't going to be the resource for you. One of the things you're going to have to do in this process is take an oath or certify that you're familiar with and willing to comply with both federal and state regulations for your motor carrier. So if you're not sure about the steps you should be taking before you apply, or definitely the steps you should be taking after you apply for the DOTMC, you really can't take that oath or certify it. So come to carrierforge.com. We have a free resource called the Trucking Business Checklist. This is the most thorough advice and assistance you can get on starting a trucking company on the internet. This is custom to your state, your equipment type, your operating radius. We're going to have you only read about the things that you need to do. So someone starting a cargo van, not leaving the state in Wisconsin versus starting a semi-truck operation up in Texas that's going to leave the state, vastly different compliance requirements. And we take all that into account when building the list for you. It's interactive. It saves your progress. This is a typically 3 to 5 week process to get through all of your compliance items, and you have up to 40 something steps for heavier equipment. So there's a lot of balls in the air, and this gives you one sheet of music to work on. First step, familiarize yourself with what are the compliance requirements so you can take that oath when you're doing the application for the DOTMC number. If you're ready to go, let's move on to where to file and how. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to show you is what I typically see people do is they'll come in here to Google, right? And they'll do USDOT application. And what you're going to find is a bunch of sponsored advertisers that are essentially trying to make you feel like they're official. They use the blue and white. A lot of times they'll even use the literal FMCSA icon. If you click on the site, they'll have the icon. The fine print will say, not affiliated with the FMCSA. However, I cannot stress enough how much people fall for this. I've had tons of clients come to me saying, well, I already have my DOTMC, only to find out they paid 2 to 3 times what they could have applying through us, but they think they did it directly through the government. So what you're looking for is the URS system, the Unified Registration System for the FMCSA. Even if you Google that, these guys are going to pop up for sponsored. And you can be several clicks away if you try to click. So I'll put the link in, but this is where you want to wind up, the official URS system for the government. The first thing is you're going to need to create a login.gov. This is your personal account. You might already have one from doing taxes and other things interacting with the government. So this is nothing to do with your company necessarily, but you need a login.gov before you can apply. So if you don't have one, create an account. I'm going to fast forward to that point. Okay, once you're set up on login.gov, this is the screen you're going to come to. I'm not going to walk through every single screen of this application because a lot of them are pretty self-explanatory, but I'll stop at the ones where you're likely to have questions. So if you're doing your own application, you're not a third-party service provider. At this point, it's going to take us through a lot of informational, just making sure you're reading and essentially explaining to you if you have an MC number, you need a BOC3, you're going to need to get insurance. If none of this is making sense, refer back to that beginning of the video, go to the Trucking Business Checklist. We'll explain what all this is on the site. Next, it's going to talk about the applicant contact. So this is who is filling in the application. If you are the owner, company contact, my information. Down here, you're going to have to provide at least one phone number and your email. This is going to be public information. So there's a couple places it's going to ask for emails and phone numbers, and they become public, and they will be hit with a lot of solicitation as soon as you finish this application. That said, do not try to use a burner email or something like that, because brokers and shippers are also going to typically require that you use this email and this phone when interacting with them so that they know you really are in possession of this DOT and you're not just an impersonator or committing fraud saying, hey, this is my DOT MC number, but use this email. You typically also have to use a real address. Some places like this one, you can use like a PO box, but when you get to the physical address of the business or the company itself, they are very strict on physical address being your real address that you have access to, that you keep the records at. Typically, you park the truck there. The operations are conducted out of that address. If you try to use a virtual address, a PO box, it's going to catch it. It's going to reject it. If you really want your mail to go to a PO box, whenever it asks for a mailing address, that's fine. But you're going to see later on here, we really can't use these addresses moving forward. All right, here we got Dun and Brad's number. This is not required. It's a free number you can issue to your company for credit reasons. So it's totally fine to say no, but if you have one, you can do that. Your legal business name. If you don't have an official business structured in your state, like an LLC or a simple corp, or a partnership, the legal business name is your name. It doesn't matter that you want to go by Tom's Fast Trucks. You are Tom last name, right? That is as a sole proprietor, someone without an official business structure, which I do not recommend, but it is legal. You have to put your name here. If you have a business like an LLC, you have to put the full name as it appears on your articles of organization or incorporation, depending on the business type. And so, like, if it's Tom's Fast Trucks LLC, I have to include the LLC. You're going to have a bunch of issues if you don't include the full name with that kind of thing in there. Now, you can do a doing business as or a fictitious name with your state, even if you are a sole proprietor and my legal business name is Matt Rorty, I would still put that here. And on the next screen is where I would put my DBA or my fictitious name. This is an official filing with the state. So again, I can't just say on the last screen that I'm Matt Rorty and on this screen, well, I'm going to go by Matt's Fast Trucks. Unless I officially filed for a doing business as in my state that Matt Rorty, the sole proprietor, is going to do business as Matt's Fast Trucks. And at that point, I usually tell people, if you're filing something official with the state, why not get a real business structure or an entity in place? You typically won't have a DBA, right? You're going to just be yourself. So if you're not filing company, your name, skip this screen. If you did file a company, you're going to name the company Matt's Fast Trucks LLC. Probably not file for Matt's Fast Trucks as a DBA. I'm Matt's Fast Trucks LLC. My official business name matches. So here's a EIN versus SSN. So your employer identification number or your social security number. If you have a business, you typically are going to also apply for a federal EIN. This is required if you have any employees, but even if you don't, most owner operators don't start with one. It's usually needed to open like a business bank account and to keep your taxes separate from those of your personal. So if you don't have an EIN, if you're a sole proprietor, you're just kind of setting this up as loose as possible, no liability protections, no tax benefits. You can use your social security number. Otherwise, you should have an EIN by now. These are some of these pre-steps we had talked about earlier. If either way, there's usually a dash, like an EIN is 92 dash, typically something. And then SSN, obviously, there's like a 3-digit dash, 2-digit dash. Get the dashes out. That'll stop you here, which confuses a lot of people and they get stuck. So just put the number in with no dashes. Are you a unit of government? If you ever aren't sure what they mean by something, you can hover over for this tooltip. In this case, they're asking, right, am I applying for this DOT number to be utilized by the government? Typically, this is a no. Form of business, this is getting into the sole proprietorship. Here's another little bug people get stuck on. If I do limited liability company, which is the vast majority of people setting these up, or especially for our clients, choose one, and there's a little clicker, and it disappears. And people get stuck here too. Just click off, click back in, and type in this area, and it will allow you to move on. Here you get to the definitions of the operating classifications. So you have intermodal equipment provider. It tells you what these are. Again, we are really speaking to motor carrier of property. And then that gets us into these next steps. Now it's going to say, now that you understand what these are you any of them? No. Yes, we are transporting property. Am I going to receive compensation or am I doing it for free? I'm going to receive compensation. I'm for hire. So yes. And then what type of property will the applicants move? Again, hazardous material, not really recommended for brand new authority. Typically you have insurance issues. Household goods, are you a moving company? Exempt commodities, there's a list that you can find here for the FMCSA. It's unmanufactured goods, fruits and vegetables. There's little or no value. Typically you're going to be other non-hazardous freight. Are you going to transport this non-hazardous across state lines? This is the determiner of an MC number or not. I would also recommend, if you're not sure, that you actually set up to cross state lines. It costs a little bit more. However, If you don't know where all of your freight is coming from, I wouldn't limit yourself right out the gate. Most people live pretty close to a state line, and not being able to cross it can be the difference between that truck moving on certain days and not, or high value loads moving or not. And then you get to cargo classifications. This is where I see it. A lot of people go wrong when filing their own. It's basically recommending to me general freight. But then you get into this more specialty stuff. If you're not sure, I don't know, maybe I could move paper product, right? You really typically are going to start with general freight. Don't go wild clicking all these. Too many insurances or too many cargo types is going to affect your insurance negatively in order to be uninsurable. You can change this later and it doesn't even cost anything. Once you have your DOT number, it's free to submit MCS 150s and update your cargo type. Okay, here we're in the vehicle section. Please provide the number of non-CMVs, non-commercial motor vehicles, the applicant plans to operate. This means the federal definition. If the vehicle is 10,000 pounds or less gross vehicle weight rating, that's going to be on the door jamb by the VIN number of the vehicle. Then you list the vehicle here. So, like some cargo vans and lighter vehicles, you might say, yes, I'm going to operate a cargo van that weighs less than 10,001 gross vehicle weighting. I need to put it here. If you're a box truck, a hot shot, a semi truck, vast majority of these guys are zero. You're going to be over 10,000 combined vehicle weight rating between the truck and trailer, or just the truck like a box truck. That's what this is asking about. Now we're talking commercial motor vehicles. Now the gross vehicle weight rating or combined weight rating between the truck plus trailer, if it's a combination of units, is here. Everything needs to be answered. So if I have a semi truck, which is a straight truck, or I'm sorry, a truck tractor, a semi truck, and I'll have one trailer and I own them both, I cannot move forward because I need zeros everywhere else on this screen. Some of the definitions here too. You have straight trucks, that's going to be where the cargo is attached to the vehicle itself. Box trucks are straight trucks. Pickup trucks are straight trucks. Cargo vans are straight trucks. Tractor trailers or truck tractors typically have a combination of units, right? A semi truck, the cargo goes in an attached unit, so it would be a truck tractor. Other items here, owned, that's obviously includes financed, even if the bank owns it. Term leased and trip leased. Term leased is going to be any leased vehicle or long-term rental. Trip lease is I'm going to rent it for a trip and then turn it in. I'm going to include this one too because you got to be reading these carefully. Please provide the number of commercial motor vehicles. So if you had a cargo van, it's zero no matter what if you didn't have a commercial motor vehicle. But if you do have a commercial motor vehicle, will operate solely in interstate commerce. Interstate commerce, again, crossing state lines. So even if I have a semi truck with a trailer like I just put, if I also want to move freight within my state without leaving, I'm going to do intrastate and interstate. It's zero because I will not solely cross state lines. Same for intrastate. I'm going to do interstate as well. So these can both be zero. And here we get to similar question. If you've already thought about that, am I a commercial motor vehicle? You should have the answer to this. Will any of the vehicles transporting property across state lines get transported in vehicles over or equal to, so over 10,000 pounds or equal to 10,001? That means it's a commercial vehicle. This is going to determine what my minimum insurance amount is for commercial auto liability. If I say yes, I need 750,000 if I'm not doing hazardous. If I say no, I only need 300,000. And here we're going to get into a series of oaths and certifying things. This is where, again, it can be helpful to use a system like CarrierForge to translate this to more understandable language. You still have to certify the initial statement, but we can help explain it in a little better way. So make sure you're reading them, certifying them, but I'm not going to walk through all of them because there's quite a few. So just take your time and certify as you go. In the end, you're going to come to an identity verification screen. Then, if you didn't cross state lines or you have nothing here indicating you need an MC number, you will get granted your DOT number immediately. If you also do need an MC number, the next screen is going to be a checkout, $300 per authority. So typically, if you're a common carrier property authority, it's a $300 checkout. They're going to collect payment, and then they'll move on to immediately granting that DOT number. The MC number goes into a minimum 21-day, maximum 90-day process period. So you cannot be authorized for hire with an MC number before that 21 days has passed. And there's additional things. You need a BLC3, you need minimum insurance on file with the FMCSA. If 21 days is too fast to meet those requirements, you have that 90 days typically from when you applied before they would dismiss the application for the MC number. Now, the last thing I want to show you is a much simpler way to go about this and all the other applications and items you're going to have to do. If you create an account with carrierforge.com, we walk you step by step from naming the company, filing for your business in your base state, getting your employer identification number before we get to the DOT MC number. Then we go through the other required items like a BOC3 and a UCR. We even help with websites and emails and finding insurance. That said, I talked about the free trucking business checklist as well to get prepared to file, even if you're going to do it yourself. So if I click trucking business checklist here, each one of these is interactive and informative. So required items have the asterisk. But as an example, I mean, there's just a ton of good information. Insurance being a requirement. You read about what types of insurance you need, what are average policy amounts for the year, how much can you expect to pay, what types do what are insurances that you don't legally need, but you probably want to get, and then how we help. I hope you found the tutorial beneficial and helpful. If you have questions, feel free to leave me a comment. I'll try to come back and monitor those and answer those questions. Otherwise, if you come to carrierforge.com, you can get a hold of us directly. We'd love to help you launch your trucking company. There's a lot of resources on the site, so take advantage of it, and I wish you the best.